Hello, amigas, and welcome to Amiga Handle Your Shit podcast. Wow, I'm just so over the moon for this amazing woman that is here with me today on Amiga Handle Your Shit podcast. Her name is Stephanie Vasquez, and she's from Phoenix, Arizona, amigas. Remember, I was telling you about my book tour and how amazing it was and how God created a better table than I could have imagined? Well, guess what? She is part of the reason I get to say that today. And I'm just so grateful and over the moon that she said yes to be here with me on Amiga Handle Your Shit podcast because, amigas, she's a serial entrepreneur, freaking Latina trailblazer. She has been featured all over, like major publications. I can honestly say she's been on Forbes, she's been on Los Suns, on Cox, the News Times, Phoenix Business Journal, Phoenix Rising. I mean, amigas, you're in for an amazing treat because she's got a lot to say and we have a lot in common. And I'm just so grateful she's here. So, Stephanie, welcome to Amiga Handle Your Shit podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. As you're talking, I'm feeling like my heart race just a little bit with the excitement. I mean, our conversation, I have no idea where it's going to go. And I'm so excited to just jump in with you because when I first met you, as you were speaking, I felt immediately connected. And it's kind of one of those things like you're a girl's girl. You're driven and you're all the things. And I just want to thank you for being a mirror for me and allowing me to be a mirror for you.
Oof, girl, you're speaking my language. Oh, amigas, we're going to get to that later, but first we're going to talk more about Stephanie and who she is, and please, amiga, please tell us, where are you from? And I know you're Latina, so there is a story to that, so please share with us here on the pod.
Yeah, so I am a native Phoenician. I was born and raised here. My family came from really small towns in New Mexico, Carlsbad and Artesia. I'm third generation. And my parents, they got married really young and decided to move to Phoenix for more opportunities. I mean, like I said, they're from very, very small towns. When I go back and visit family, I always thank my mom for moving because, the opportunities aren't as plentiful there as they are here. However, when we moved away from our family, we didn't have any family here in Arizona. So we really just leaned in to our neighbors to create that community and that family unit.
Well, it certainly shows in all the things that you've created. And I know that we're going to get talking to about a lot of things, but more on being from Phoenix, Arizona. I usually have a lot of Latinas that show up from L.A. And when I went to go do this book tour and coming to your space, and I'm just thinking like, wow, although LA has done a lot, I feel like we can learn from Phoenix, especially from women like you, especially like women like you who really have taken the community angle to a whole different level. And when I say that, I mean, you have a cafe, and then you have this nonprofit, and then you have your entrepreneur. Like, I mean, you've got so much going, and I feel like, wow, how do we even unpack? How do we start? So let's go back. Like okay, Stephanie, so when you decided to create your own community of entrepreneurs, how did this all begin? Did it begin with the cafe first? If so, let's talk about that.
Yeah, I think it's incredible because when you talk about all of it in totality, it sounds like it was a great plan and it was not. As we all know, like your life, just one thing unravels and opens the doors and doors close and you take a right and you take a left. And my life is no different. I went to ASU to become a teacher. That's what I always wanted to do. And I graduated in 2004, the first person in my family to graduate. And I began teaching in a community. It was a migrant community called Santa Maria. And I was the only person of color on the faculty side And the school was like 99.9% Latino, free and reduced lunch, like all the things. And I think my advocacy for community and representation really was set on fire there. And I really thought I was going to be a teacher forever. And that was a plan.
Yeah.
So I went to Costa Rica, and I'm going to kind of just on high level go through the story so it kind of makes sense.
Please do.
So I went to Costa Rica on a vacation and had a huge aha moment where I realized that coffee is so exploitative to our people. It's so exploitative to the earth. And it was one of those things like, oh, I'm part of the problem. So what can I do about it? And I'm real like look, see, move. What are we going to do? What can we do? And so I decided to open a coffee shop. And so we were, right?
It's being a teacher?
I'll be a teacher. Yes.
Of course. You're not going to burn the boats completely. You're just little, like tippy toe.
Right. So at the time also, I was an independent mother of two, and my babies were going to the schools that I was teaching at. So, I mean, I was really invested in the community that I was working in. However, again, I just had to do something. You know, coffee is the second highest traded commodity next to oil and the second highest purchased beverage next to water. So when you think about negative impacts, they're being compounded day after day after day. So I just thought, okay, we have to do something about this. And I opened up a sustainable coffee shop in downtown Phoenix. And this was in downtown Phoenix in 2007. Downtown Phoenix was not hot. It was hot, but it wasn't it wasn't the place to be the way that it is now. So I had no idea what I was doing, and I did it anyways. And there was a lot of really fundamental values that needed to be in place of this coffee shop, because at the time, 2007, there wasn't spaces for people of color. There weren't spaces for community to come and gather. So having a community space that represented us like culturally and with that warm, I mean, that feeling that you feel when you go into your family's house, that's what I want. However, I wanted to do it in a sustainable, conscientious way. And this is way before sustainability was sexy, way before.
Yeah.
So,
well, 2007. Yeah. That was 17 years ago, right?
Yeah, we are just getting ready to celebrate our 18th year.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us, okay, so yeah, now sustainability is hot. It's a hot topic. Everybody wants to do something in relation to that concept. So guide us. Okay, so you created the space in Phoenix, Arizona, and I know that this is like the first Latina-owned coffee shop in all of Phoenix.
Yeah, well, I don't want to say that because I don't know. I don't know that for certain. I do know that we are the longest standing coffee house in downtown Phoenix owned by a Latino. Yes.
I love that. I'm so proud of that. And I actually went to go visit Amigas. It is so beautiful. It's so gorgeous. And the coffee is amazing. I had a chai latte, of course. That's one of my go-to. Oh, there you go. That's my go-to. So it was delicious. It was an incredible place. And your staff was beautiful. Like they were so gracious. And you know, sometimes coffee shops are like going fast and they don't have the time to tell you hello and that do you need anything. Here, even though it was busy, like they still had the essence of who you are, Stephanie. And I'm sure that is something that you inculcate in all of your businesses. So, okay, so now you have your coffee shop. Okay, and it's been here since 2007. So then what did you continue, being a teacher? At what point did that stop?
So yes, I always say I was double-fisted. I was teaching in the day and then the bell would ring, I would pack up my babies and we'd head downtown and we'd work the coffee shop. And the idea that I had initially was that I was gonna be a teacher and this would be supplemental income. And it sounds like a great idea in theory. However, shortly after, I had opened up a second location, the economical downturn happened in 2008 to 2010. We had a lot of expansion in downtown Phoenix. Our light rail, we were the first phase of light rail, so that was detrimental. And I just kind of got to this place where I had to make a decision. I either needed to focus on growing and scaling this business or just teach. And it was a very difficult decision. And I decided to take a chance on this coffee shop and my dream and do it. And I did. And I left teaching with the idea that I'm going to go back. Once everything is settled here, I'm going to go back to teach. And I mean, every year the principal would call and she would say, Stephanie, are you ready to come back? Are you ready? And finally, I just had to say, you know what? I know I'm not coming back. They held all of my supplies and everything. So I went and I donated it to all the teachers. And it was a very difficult choice. However, I did decide to not go back to teach in that element. However, I know that I'm a teacher still in all the work that I do.
Right, right, right. Definitely. I can see that, especially when we went to the collective. Well, we'll talk about the collective after. But okay, so here you're in the cafe, no more teaching. What came first? Did the Amor Collective, what was next in the horizon for you?
Again, just being community driven and an advocate, I really just delve into downtown Phoenix and all of the things that make a large city. And I'm very much so that I'm a social entrepreneur. I want to create positive impact in the things that I do and the things that I create. So with all of that, the mayor had asked for me to come and speak on Latina Equal Pay Day. Well, it was a gender pay gap. However, I was going to speak on specifically Latinas and how we're the lowest paid people on the planet. And when she asked me to do this, I mean, this was 2014, 13. I didn't know. I had no idea that this gender pay gap was still a real thing. I mean, I walked into it blind and I was slapped in the face with all these statistics and all this information. And I just remembered feeling sick to my stomach to think that women in this day of age are still not paid the same as men simply because we have vaginas. And I couldn't wrap my head around this, and it just kept me up at night. And I just thought, okay, Stephanie, what are you going to do about this? Because at this time, no one was on the mountaintops talking about Latina Equal Pay Day. So what I decided to do is really highlight the Latinas who took their finances, their futures, and their families into their own hands and opened up businesses. And so what we did on First Friday, we highlighted Latina Equal Pay Day and had what we called the Mujeres Mercado. And it was all Latina businesses that came in. We had about 20 of them in front of the coffee shop because we're right at the Arts District. And I mean, we had media come out, we had local leaders come out, and everyone was asking, Stephanie, when is the next one? And the funny thing is that it was supposed to be one and done. It was simply it was simply for a statement that, you know, let's really be aware of this gender pay gap and what are we going to do about it. So that being said, the program, it ended up turning into a program, and the Mujeres Mercado is now the largest outdoor market for Latina brands, businesses, and makers. And the 501c3 that I created was because of the Mujeres Mercado and Latina Equal Pay Day. So the nonprofit that I founded is called E.L.L.A, Empowering Latina Leaders in Arizona.
Right.
So, I mean, it was one of those things where it was like the cart before the horse, you know, like it was something that needed to be done, right, and something that our community clearly wanted because they just came out for it.
Wow, that's just a testimony, you know, to the woman that you are, and because not everyone can do that. Not everyone can do that, and I'm just
everyone can.
Well, you know what I mean? I think many women have these limitations, which is why I wrote the book, because obviously, like through our culture, we've been told that, you know, you have a place, stay in your place, stay in your lane. And so there's all these subconscious, right, patterns that are in your brain. And so that's why I feel like, oh my God, this is wonderful because you are definitely a leader, a trailblazer who can show that it can happen. And it happened just by you sharing information on the gap on payday and then everybody getting involved. And so I'm just like, whoa, like how can we as women do that seamlessly? I it's the only way I can think of is that yes, you are part of the community and yes, you had the people come, but I also feel like there has to be some sort of like, I don't know, like a spiritual download and to show that like that aha, like, oh, I you think I get to do this? Do you think I get to do this, God? So when you started seeing all the people showing up for you, showing up for mujeres, what did that bring to you in your life? Like how did that create a momentum in your life? How what was the next step after that?
Well, I want to say that what that did is it confirmed that I am capable. I I am capable. I am loved. I am supported, and it's undoing some of the messaging like you were talking about from our childhood that were ingrained in us. So it was just proof like, look, Stephanie, look, people come, people support you, people will do this, the people want this, this is relevant, all those things. Because when you're taking a chance, you've got all this stuff going on in your head, like, what if no one shows up? What if this is a failure? How embarrassing. Like, we think about all the negative far before we start looking at the positive. So if anything, that was a testament, like, okay, what are you going to do now? People want more. What are you going to do now?
Yeah, yeah. And you certainly gave them more. So
Yes.
let's talk about something that you and I have in common because I feel like at some point I feel like in this vein that doing self-improvement work was happening. That maybe amigas out there can know that the part of self-improvement is so important. It gives you that little spark. Instead of looking at things as a victim, you're looking at things as a victor and how is everything aligning. So can you share with my community about that? Because I know you and I have something in common. And so how did you start with the self-improvement along your entrepreneurial journey?
So I was raised very religiously, very, very religious. My family was hardcore Catholics. We went to private school in really small area, and religion was always a thing. So spirituality was not something that we talked about. If anything, it was almost like voodoo, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And but I've always been a little more like, well, why is this and that doesn't make sense? And I'll share a story. I went to school and I have a science minor, and I remember coming home and showing my dad the picture of the skeletons, and I'm like, Dad, look, the ribs are the same on the man and the woman, because it was taught to us in a literal form that a woman is created from the rib of a man. I don't remember exactly where to quote it from the Bible. However, when I told him this, he was so angry that how dare I challenge this? And I understand now where his come from was, but that's just a little nugget of kind of how my mind worked. Like I would question. I would question, like, well, what about this and what about that? So I was always very intrigued and open-minded about things. And one day, one of the employees at the shop, her husband came in and he was just like, hey, Stephanie, I've got this 3-day thing. Do you want to come? And I was like, sure. And he looked at me shocked because he's like, not easy, because I didn't ask any questions, but I'm a student of this world. And yes, you have 3 days of information that can potentially help me in my professional world. Sign me up. But I did not know what I was walking into. And wow, that was my first real engagement with personal development. And that 3-day seminar knocked me on my butt, picked me back up, put me at the top of the mountain. I mean, like, it turned everything in my world upside down, shook it up, and made me question it all. Because we think we are so right in our perspective on things until you just change the view just a little bit. And you're like, hold on a second, I never thought about it like this. And this allowed me to think about things in a different way and see other possibilities and really change the way that my mind processes and experiences things. And so once I did that 3-day, I was like, okay, take me to the 7-day, take me to the women's leadership, take me to the, I did everything they offered. And because it was now completely, I saw the change in my life. When I changed my perspective, immediately saw the change. So it was one of those things like, give me more. So when you shared with me, when you were talking about personal development and you were like, some of the things that you were saying, I was like, she's speaking to my soul right now. And I just knew that you and I shared something. And when you said what it was, I was like, that's my girl right there.
And Amigas, and the organization we're talking about is the PSI, and it's a self-improvement organization that is not very well known, because on purpose, it's kind of landmark, but without the advertisement behind it. It's kind of like a secret society kind of thing. So you get to be initiated into this organization through word of mouth, and it's not, a ticket that you're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna just join. No, you can't. So, but anyhow, it is such a valuable, oh God, it was a game changer for me. It really was as well. It really allowed me to say, okay, Jackie, it's time to, maybe change the trajectory of this lawyer gig that you have and change it around, because arguing isn't going to get you anywhere, and it's certainly not, helping your body and your mind and your peace and your sanity. So for me, it was like, okay, God, but what do I do next? But, as I was in one of the sessions, I remember thinking, I really felt this divine hit in my heart, like, your voice is bigger. Like, your voice is bigger. And I'm like, well, I'm already a lawyer. Like, I already, argue cases in front of judges and blah, blah, blah. But it was different. And here I am with a podcast, and I'm like, oh Lord, maybe this was it. But I'm saying, like, it's so important to really allow yourself that space to dig deeper than superficial. Like, you get to dig deeper, because whether it's trauma, whether it's some unconscious behavior, unconscious biases, whatever that is, emotional intelligence, it gets to be uncovered in these kind of sessions. And so I'm just so grateful that I met you, my WLS sister. And okay, so now we have these beautiful, you did all the things, and you took all the tools, and now you have ella, and you have your coffee shop. So then what happened next?
So the Mujeres Mercado was just growing. The cities are contacting us, come and bring this to our city. And what I was seeing is these business owners were preparing for these markets. They'd pack their stuff, they would unpack their stuff. Whatever they didn't sell, they would pack up. And it was like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday thing. Also, like, the seasonality in Arizona, there's a good solid 3.5 months that aren't bearable outside. So I just thought, how are these business owners able to scale? What's the likeliness? First off, less than 1% of Latina CEOs and business owners ever generate $1 million in revenue. That's problematic. That's very problematic.
Very.
So if that's the statistic with normal businesses, brick and mortars and storefronts, what is the trajectory for our micro, mini, pop-up businesses? Slim to none, to ever be able to sustain themselves. And I just thought, there's got to be another way. What is that jump from pop-up to storefront? I mean, it's going to cost you at least $200,000, and more than likely you're going to be in a zip code that can't support your business. Like, there's so many variables and challenges for you to scale. So I just thought, okay, how can we do this in the mainstream market? How do we mitigate risks and do this in a community environment so that these women feel supported? And the idea is the Amor Collective. So this is an incubator space for Latina brands, businesses, and makers. And you get a full 1 year rotation in a high foot traffic mainstream market to test and to scale your business in real time. And so, and you were able to experience the Amor Collective. It's a beautiful space. And the idea, there was so much intentionality when I was building it out. It was, I wanted women to feel like the queens and the goddesses that we are. So I did not want to be in a plaza on the corner that wasn't seen. As you know, when you come through, it's on the main strip. I did not want it to be like, oh, we're going to make this work. So I wanted everything to be beautiful. Because think about it, as a woman, when you walk into a space that honors you, all of a sudden your shoulders go back and your head is raised and you just feel different. You move different. You know, when you take away all those things that hold you back just a little bit, you take away all of this, now you get to focus on what your passion is. And then think about the come from those products and those, like your businesses. Think about that come from and the outcome of it. And that was my idea. The other idea was that you got to experience the retail space, and then when you come into the back is where we have that collaborative space. And the idea, because we have classes there we have classes there all the time. However, we have program classes every month for all the businesses that you were able to see. So the idea is, as the women are walking into the store and all that self-doubt, all that conversation that happens here, they get to see, well, she did it, and she did it, and she did it, as they're looking at all of these different business owners. Because at every space, there's a bio and a headshot, so you can see all of these women that look like you, that came from similar stories as you. They did it. And so it's one of those things like, they can do it, I can do it. So by the time you get to the back, you've been pounded over the head with over 37 models of how other people did exactly what you want to do. Yeah. So it's very intentionally built out.
Yes. Wow. And how long did that take for you to build out?
I think we did it in 8 months, 7 months.
Oh my goodness. So amigas, it's in a wonderful location, and it is like a, what would you call it? It's like a strip mall kind of thing where there's
Outdoor
different
mall.
shops, an outdoor mall. Yeah. And it's so gorgeous and beautiful that when you go in, you're like, what is this? And then you see all the different pop-ups in there. I was so curious. I'm like, how is this created? So thank you so much, Stephanie, for telling us that this is possible. So you have one location?
Right now there's one.
Right now there's one. Are there in the works to have another location?
I feel like when we look at our Latina population, when you look at the numbers of Latinas that are starting businesses, I feel and I know that an Amor Collective needs to be in all major cities. It needs to be where our Latinas are at. It is important that we bridge the gap and create resources and create communities of support, because really when we look at it, when you also look at the percentage of Latinas that are actually head of household. So when a woman thrives, how does that impact our families, our environments, and overall our economies? It is so important that we ensure that we are supported and that we thrive, because it impacts all of us.
Yes, yes. Amen, sister. So if you're thinking of going to LA, you better get in contact with me. I would love to be number one. Tapped. Jackie, do you want to do a more collective? Yes, please. Because I feel like, I'm here in LA, and I start to think about the things that I see. I live on the west side, which is predominantly Caucasian and not really Latino, if you really ask me. And there are spaces that are very community, but it's very gringo based, and there's nothing wrong with that. But usually when I go to these places, I'm probably like the only Latina there. And I'm like, only if we could have something like that over here in LA. I know you had We All Grow Latina, the COO was there at your space, right? Okay.
Yeah.
I know Carissa. She was on my podcast a year ago, I think.
Just
Amazing.
better. She is great. She is
She's
so great.
she's so awesome, just like you, Stephanie. She's a heavy hitter in LA in the bar space. And she's incredible. And getting into a space where it's predominantly male, like that is like, whoa, amazing. And she has her restaurant has like that community area where it's like, you can do like a pop-up there. But to create something that is permanent, it's a whole different level because you're not really sure if all these little businesses can thrive. Is if you putting them in there for 1 year, is that on purpose because some may not thrive?
Well, the idea is it started off as 3 months, and I thought we'll do a 3 month rotation. But as we were in the rotation, the businesses were like, I don't want to, I'm not done yet. I'm just getting started. And so then I took a few steps back as a business owner myself. Is 1 quarter enough to understand, to learn, to innovate, to pivot, and implement? And the answer is no. Like even 1 year is not enough. However, 1 year is going to give you a full seasonality. It's going to give you time to do all of those things that I just said. So we're going into our 2nd year. So we've had a few businesses reapply for that 2nd year, and some have. However, the demand is very high. So this is also why we have to do the 1 year rotation. And also, I mean, some businesses aren't going to be able to do it. The idea is a great idea and the passion is there, but that grit that it takes to grow your business is something that's very special. And that to me is the secret sauce between a successful business and then one that is not successful.
Yeah. Well, you have a lot of beautiful businesses within the Amor Collective. And as a matter of fact, I'm wearing this beautiful necklace. It's all like the Virgin Marys and it's just so beautiful. And I got another thing. I was gifted another it was an earring set and oh my God, I'm just so over the moon of how beautiful these special ladies are. At when I met them at the networking event that you were hosting at the Amor Collective. Oh my God, amiga, there's so much. I mean, God, you're so I can't even like I'm lost of words to be quite honest of how beautiful this not only this conversation is, but just who you are as a human being, of how you're putting your community first above all, and how important it is to rise together as a community. So now that we know, okay, you have the Amor Collective, what's next? What's next for Stephanie?
Well, we did also implement a third program. It's called Amor Amigas, and it's basically a social networking event where we bring in different panel speakers and different topics. And what was so incredible about this program is it wasn't just business owners. This brought in, I mean, we had 3 generations at one point in these events where we had a grandmother, a mom, and a daughter. And I just thought, wow, this is how much our community needs these topics and these spaces where we can actually come in and share generational knowledge in one space on these topics. And I mean, the topics range from like health to wealth. I mean, they're just all over the place. And then we throw in some fun ones. The last one we had was twerk after work, and we did a twerking class, and that was so cool because we had someone's grandma there too. So there's all kinds of just really fun things that we do. However, to your question, what's next? I don't know. I do not try to control. That was something that was a big thing for me in my past, is like, okay, Stephanie, you go to school, you get a degree, you do this job, and then you do this, and then you do this. And there was this linear path that I thought I had control of. And the second I let go of control, all of these things just kind of flow. And to me, I don't know what's next. And if I attempt to speculate, whatever I say is next will be way less than what God has in store for me. So I always say, you stay ready. You stay ready. I always have my nails done and I have outfits just in case I get that call. Like, you just stay ready and you just continue to move in a space of passion and love, and it'll come.
Oh my God, oh my God. It gave me chills. It really truly did. And I know that there is something there because I just started thinking, I'm going to be back in Phoenix and I'm going to be with Stephanie and I'm going to work with her. I don't know how, but something's going to happen.
And I'm going to be in LA and I'm going to be working with you because LA needs an Amor Collective. Our population is huge there.
It's that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm telling you. So that's if you're coming over here, let me know and I can sort, other vendors. I know people. You know people. I mean, I'm telling you something's gonna happen. No sé qué, pero va a pasar. I truly do.
Well, you know what they say when people come together and they hold a thought together? So let's just hold this thought that the Amor Collective, we're at the ribbon cutting and all your communities there, and we're just laughing and champagne toasts, and we have the line of people there to support, and the media's there, and it's just big and beautiful and celebrated exact way that we should all be celebrating.
Amen. Oh, music to my ears, Amina. Okay. Wow. I mean, we could be here all coffee talk all day long. That's for sure. But, I know your time is very valuable. But before I let you go, I always ask my guests if they could provide 1 or 2 tips on how an amiga can handle her shit. So what say you?
Literally handle your shit. Like one thing at a time, not to think about the 17,000 things that you need to handle. Even the smallest thing on your list, start there. And then go to the next one, and then go to the next one. It's one step at a time. I think a lot of times we try to do everything and end up doing nothing. And so my thing is like, just start. Get up and go. Just start.
Yes, get up and go. Just start. Amiga, thank you so much for your words, for all that you bring to the table. And I am just so grateful that I really believe God really created a better table than I could have imagined. And I'm so grateful that you were there and that we get to have this beautiful conversation. And I know this is the beginning of many to come. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Is there anything you'd like my listeners to know more about you?
Well, I really just want to acknowledge you for sharing your space to highlight other women's stories. I love this because there's that notion out there that women don't work together, and that is so not true. It is so not true. And I just want to thank you for sharing your people with me. And something I would love to tell your people is to support your local Latina-owned business, that we vote every day with our dollars, every single day. So it might take a little research to find out who's the Latina coffee shop and who's the Latina hairdresser or whatever. But to please support your local Latina-owned business.
Oh my God. I already have a vision. I'm telling you, we're going to stay in touch, Amiga. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for being here on Amiga Handle Your Shit podcast.